Hello, beer tubers, and welcome to yet another beer review with me, Peter, the Master of Hoppets. Today, joined by
Just Michael.
Yes, looking at some really old school sounding beer, and we like old school beers. But I don't know, how do you feel about classic English beer? Do you like it?
I don't have that much experience in the old styles of British beers, but yeah, I'm thinking kind of low carbonation, easy going, low ABV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My gateway into getting interested in beer was English ales. So
mine
for
was
me,
German
it's a big thing.
back then.
Yeah. So this is really, it's English breweries, but they're trying to make Australian beer. So the only Australian beer style, the Australian sparkling ale.
So let me get this right. This is a British produced beer trying to interpret, there's an interpretation of an Australian beer which
Try to interpret
a British beer.
Yes.
So that's kind of stupid.
Yeah, that's a bit funny. We got this one on Beer Dome, so thanks a ton to Beer Dome for the beer. And this is the North Brewing Company in Fuller's Sparkling Ale. Fuller's in Chiswick, one of the breweries that got me into beer. They're London Pride, their ESB, their Porter, their vintage ales. All this stuff.
Yeah.
Really lovely beers. And this was brewed together with John Keeling.
Go look at Peter's back catalog for his visit at the brewery.
Yeah, I have a brewery tour
at
the brewery, which was fantastic. And I actually have reviewed quite a lot of Fuller's beers over the years, also revisited some. But it was brewed together with John Keeling and Guy Stewart, who's, I think, Fuller's brewmaster right now. So Fuller's is also owned now by, is it Kirin or is it Asahi, one of the big Japanese beer companies.
Okay.
But they still produce the classic stuff. So yeah, this is their interpretation, North and Fuller's interpretation of a sparkling ale, 4%. Australian sparkling ale, as you said briefly here, it's the Australians trying to reproduce beers from Britain. Similar to an English pale ale, but without the darker malts. And also, to some extent, apparently a little bit less of hopping rates. And it's interesting because it's something that came around the same time as steam beer in California, where brewers are trying to recreate lagers, but it was too hot to do lagers, so steam beers arose. And apparently they failed at making a lot of the classic British beers in Australia, so they ended up morphing it into this. So usually a sparkling ale is light, pale malts, with a touch of light crystal malt, and then a touch of a sugar addition of sorts. Historically, to carbonate the beer in the bottles. And then it's historically in Australia hopped with Australian varietals of hops, but also English. Which is, it sounds nice. I mean, it's kind of like an English pale ale-ish type beer, but more crisp and refreshing. They say on the description here that this is lower carbed, but if you look up the style, it sounds like it was highly carbed. So I don't know. But yeah, we've got water, barley malts, hops and yeast, and they've used Fuller's house yeast, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And the hops are Goldings, which people know, and Olicana T45, which apparently is a quite interesting sounding hop from the UK. I've never heard of it. Said it had lots of tropical flavors and whatnot. So I wonder if that's part of the newer hop breeding programs in the UK, where the UK is trying to make modern hops. Because apparently at one time, the UK was the biggest suppliers of hops in the entire world.
Yeah.
And then there's also, not mentioned on here, but there's also a hop in here called Ernest, which is a really old English hop variety that I also never heard of, which is citrusy and spicy. So, yeah.
I can smell yeast.
Yeah, I can smell
yeasty.
I can smell the yeast character as well. So let's check it out. Enough history. Pours a slightly hazy golden yellow color.
Yeah.
It looks like it's quite effervescent. I mean, I see streams of CO2 in the bottom of the glass.
Yeah.
And a white head. It looks almost like the modern West Coast
IPAs. Actually it does.
Because it's so pale in color. This was, I think they said they used, Thomas Fawcett Golden Promise malt, and then a touch of light crystal malt. But let's check out the aroma. Oh yeah, very yeast forward.
But also fruity.
Yes, very apricot-y.
Yeah,
actually. And
it has quite good. Also, it has some Pilsner notes, some lager notes too.
There's definitely, but it's more fruity than a classic German Pils. There's definitely like English ale qualities
Smells
because of these.
Quite good.
Yeah.
Actually.
So this is the type of beer when you smell. There's also a grassy, nettly type thing, spicy nuance.
Yeah.
It really smells British,
Yeah, it does.
although
it does.
it's Australian. But it gets me a bit excited because it's really nostalgic. It's almost a bit like a golden ale or something.
Yeah, I agree. It smells quite good, I think.
Yeah. Well, it smells nice. Let's try it. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks to Beer Dome for the beer. This is an apply-to-face beer. That is ultra crushable.
Yeah, it is.
It's so sessionable. Really easy
Tastes
going.
really good.
It's kind of like almost as if you crossed British ale with lager.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm thinking like Euro pale lager, not like classic Pilsner, because it's got that light, crisp malt backbone that you associate with like more bigger produced lager beers. Or even if you've had like Australian lagers like Tooheys or Victoria Special Bitter or something, that like light crispness of those kind of beers. But then with a much bigger yeast impression than...
Yeah, but I think it's quite balanced in the taste. It's really well made.
Yeah.
I could crush a lot of these. It's a nice bitterness.
Yeah. It's not like overtly bitter, but there's a nice bitterness to it. It's much more crisp and vibrant than like some of the classic Fuller's beers.
But I don't know about the combination.
I think it's fun.
pretty regular.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you think of Fuller's, think of like maybe their Wild River. I don't know if they still do that one. I remember that being in this kind of ballpark with more fruity hops and whatnot. But I'm also surprised at the hop flavor.
Yeah.
Because it's not something I think classic English hops. There could be, if I didn't know, a touch of a more modern hop in it. Because it has like a little bit of citrus.
But that one,
but that's
Olicana was quite new.
Yeah, and it must be from that because there is a soft, generic, tropical kind of fruit flavor, citrus fruit flavor, peppery and spicy, nettly flavor, and then that yeast.
It also had a bit of sweetness on the back end.
Yeah, and surprising, like it feels a bit fluffy actually.
Yeah.
For a 4% beer.
I kind of like this.
But I can already tell that this is a beer where geeks will say, this is fucking boring.
Yeah.
Instantly.
But it's well made and it's nice.
It's
nice with some so it won't be forgotten. These kind of beers that someone really keeps on making.
Yeah,
some new
for
stuff.
sure. I love that.
Old stuff.
And I think the only Australian sparkling ale I might ever have had has been from Cooper's. And you know, I can't really remember how it was. But if you read about the style, it seems like they've nailed it because it's supposed to be this kind of light, golden, refreshing, crisp beer, kind of clean, but with some yeast profile. You know, it seems like they hit the head on the nail.
Yeah.
But I can see, especially being a customer in the UK, usually drinking. I don't know how North is these days. I haven't drunk North in a long time, but it used to be a very interesting, very up and coming brewery.
Yeah.
Lots of cool modern stuff, hazies. Pastry, like super
Super
fruited,
fruity sours.
maybe not super fruited, but they had the triple fruited goes and all that. And then you get something like this, and you're like, because this has got so much Fuller's DNA, like loads. It really feels like classic English
so you don't
beer.
forget the old stuff.
Yeah.
In all the new IPAs and hazy stuff. Once in a while, it's nice to try something else.
Yeah, and I think maybe also we have an easier time appreciating this kind of beer because we're so into our classic beer these days, especially with lagers.
Yeah.
Because this is not far from lager.
Nope.
It's more fruity, a little less bitter, but you can definitely see that it's got the
It has
yeast
something floating around. In the
Yeah,
bottom.
I think it's a bit of yeast.
Yeah, perhaps.
But it's like, if you love a nice, crisp Pilsner, you will also love this sparkling ale.
And if you love a classic British lager,
Yeah.
you'll also like this, I think.
Yeah, or like a British golden ale from the pub. Like those kind of beers. So I think it's really good. I'm not like blown away or floored, and I think it's hard to rate because I have no reference really with sparkling ale from Australia.
It is quite difficult. I was thinking the same thing. It is hard to rate this.
So if I compare it to a sparkling ale, I can't really. But in terms of a preference, I like it. It's really nicely drinking. Maybe like an 87, 88 or something.
I was thinking exactly 88, 87.
Yeah.
Exactly the same. But yeah. So I
It's
think
just
we'll
really
land
crushable.
there.
And really enjoyable. Bread, a little bit bready too. But yeah, trying this makes me want to drink more classic English styles.
Yeah.
But it's just impossible to get in Denmark. Like we get loads of English beer, but what we get is haze.
or pastry.
Yeah, and all these things. It'd be fun to try some really cool, awesome classic stuff
Yeah,
from the UK.
I totally agree.
Some awesome different mix of old school English beer would be nice.
Yeah.
Like we used to get so much in Denmark, loads of different breweries.
Yeah,
But
the
these
Badger and all these.
Fuller's. I mean, I think the only thing with Fuller's I haven't seen in ages. But Samuel Smith seems to be the only one constantly around.
And there's also another one, Samuel.
You're thinking of Samuel Adams, I think.
Yeah.
That's the US.
Oh yeah, sorry.
That's from Boston. But like Hook Norton, Ringwood. There
What
used
about
to be
these
so
hobgoblins and all these?
You can still get them, but they are not that great anymore.
Okay.
They were bought by one of the biggest breweries in the UK of like classic English beer called Marston's, and since the acquisition, they've just become kind of.
Also, the Badger,
brand.
is that from the same?
No, Badger is independently owned, but I haven't tried Badger ales in years.
And there was.
They're like a supermarket kind of brewery, I think.
Okay.
I remember going to the UK and you could get their bottled ales really cheaply in supermarkets.
They have
But
nice,
I
nice
really love
looking etiquettes.
Yeah, I loved the
Labels.
first ever craft beer I had was their Golden Champion.
Yeah.
And I'd love to try that beer again. All these years down the line, especially coming full circle. And
Perhaps
wanting to
one should go ask the Wolf if they can
Yeah.
help us get some beers
get some Badger ales. That'd be fun.
or some British beers.
Yeah, just some British beers.
It could be nice asking them.
Yeah, I mean they get stuff on tap on
Yeah.
cask. We need to go there and do some reviews at one
We
point.
do.
and
We
review
do.
some
We do.
cask ales. But yeah, if you guys had a chance to try North Brewing Company and Fuller's Sparkling Ale, let us know what you thought of it. Really refreshing, ultra crushable beer. I think as I looked info on it on Untappd, and people are a bit harsh, but I think it's understandable because people think
It's not a popular beer.
it's not a popular beer. But I think it's a beer that has merit and it's nice for what it is. I think people shouldn't be as harsh when beer isn't exploding in your face with flavor. So with that note, we're going to say cheers. And remember to comment, subscribe, check out the Facebook fan page and Twitter and Instagram. Give the video a thumbs up, enjoy it, ring the bell for future notifications about videos. And I want to drink the rest too and see you guys in another beer review.
Super meget citrus. Sådan.
Yeah, very citric, zesty.
Yeah.